Hi there, welcome to Chapter 2 of Fannie Never Flinched. When we see here, we can see the chapter title. It's in bold and it's large. Fannie Stitches Together a Dream. And this took place in St. Louis, Missouri in 1897. So remember, we're working on what is chronological order. And we know we started yesterday, the story was with the bullets flying, was in the 1900s. So this is 1897, so we're going back in time. So keep that in mind. Fannie's had pounded from the racket of the high-speed sewing machines. Dozens of mechanized needles pumping up and down sounded a continuous clickety-clack, clickety-clack. Remember, onomatopoeia, clickety-clack, over the rumble of foot treadles and the whir of spinning spools of thread. "Faster!" the boss shouted. "Work faster!" Fannie longed to stretch her arms and legs and straighten her back, but she kept a firm hand on the fabric, feeding it steadily under the needle. One stray glance, and the needle could tear through her finger. It happened once or twice a day to some girl in the factory. "You bleed on the fabric, you pay for it," the boss always said. Fannie worked at one of two sweatshops, owned and operated by the Marks and Haas Clothing Company, the largest clothing manufacturer in St. Louis. She sewed silk-lined hunting coats, each with 11 pockets. Finishing a pocket, Fannie rubbed her bleary eyes and moved on to the next. Fannie Mooney Sellens was born in 1867, the oldest daughter of an Irish family living in Cincinnati, Ohio. Her father worked as a house painter, and her mother worked at home caring for the family. Fannie had one older brother, a younger sister, and three younger brothers. In the 1870s, the Mooneys moved to St. Louis, Missouri, where Fannie went to school, learned to read and write, and finished the 8th grade. She eventually married Charles Sellens, and they had 4 children. Charles died when the youngest was still a baby. To support her family, Fannie went to work at a garment factory. Coughing from the sweatshop's foul air, Fannie dropped the presser foot onto a new seam. Most young seamstresses working with her in the garment factory in St. Louis never had the chance to go to school. Girls as young as 10 and women old enough to be grandmothers labored alongside her. They worked 10 to 14-hour days, 6 days a week. The building was hot and stifling in the summer, and bitter colds in the winter. You see, this is a picture here. It says, "Women and girls at a factory, similar to the one where Fannie worked, paused their sewing machines for a photograph. Notice the male supervisor, you can see him back here standing up, behind the workers." This was in New York in 1910. And so we just learned that Fannie's husband passed away when her youngest was still a baby, and she has 4 young children, and she needs to support them. So even though she has an education, unlike a lot of these women, she's had to get a job as a seamstress. This picture is Rose Schneiderman, like Fannie, a garment worker and union organizer, works next to the large pile of fabric that makes up her day's assignment. New York City, 1908. All the doors were locked from the outside at 7:15 each morning. Sometimes it made me sick to think what would happen in that big flimsy barracks if a fire should come, Fannie said. The families of most of the seamstresses had immigrated from country villages in Italy, Poland, and Russia, just as the Irish had come 50 years before, hoping for a better life in America. Though poor and unable to read or write, they knew how to work hard, which was exactly what garment factories in St. Louis wanted. Like Fannie, the new immigrants barely earned enough to live on, averaging less than $5 a week, which would be the equivalent of $145 today. So $145 today for 1 week would barely pay for my family of 5 to even eat. That's more than my grocery bill is usually more than that. And so when you think about that, they didn't have housing, they didn't have heat, they didn't have transportation. They could barely just afford to work like crazy all week and barely afford to put food on the table. So if anyone complained, the boss could fire them. There were always immigrants desperate for jobs. Fannie heard seamstresses in Chicago and New York City had band together and demanded higher pay and safer working conditions. They had joined a union, the United Garment Workers of America, or the UGWA. Toiling at her sewing machine, Fannie stitched together a dream. If women and girls in other cities could organize a union to improve their jobs, those in St. Louis could too. During brief lunch breaks, she spoke with her coworkers. If we earned a fair wage, your children wouldn't have to work, she said. They could go to school. Uniting forces would give workers more clout to bargain with their employers. If they didn't get fair wages and safe working conditions, they could strike. In a strike, workers walked off the job and refused to go back until the company agreed to their demands. If all the workers stuck together and didn't give in, the factory had to shut down, and the company owners lost money. Unions gave workers the power to bargain with employers and improve their lives. In 1902, Fannie and the other seamstresses launched Ladies Local 67 of the United Garment Workers of America. Marks and Haas managers feared that the union would strike. They agreed to nearly double the workers' wages and shorten the workday. All right, go ahead and answer those 2 slides on the slideshow and then turn it in.